Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Heidi. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to do part 2 of my coloring supplies collection. Part 1 was pencils and alcohol markers, and now I'm going to do the rest of my collection possibly, or we'll see how much I can get through. This is going to be water-based markers and kind of miscellaneous supplies that don't really fit into a category after that. I'm going to try not to talk too much about each one. I'm just going to do kind of a show and tell, let you know what I have, because I always think it's fun to see what other people have in their collections. Yeah, so I'm just going to go into it. This first case is the Arteza twine markers, and they have a super fine little point on one end and then a somewhat small brush end on the other. And I have, this is actually a smaller set. I believe it was the 30-something set combined with a larger set, so some of these are duplicates. Just because when I got the first one, I really loved them, and I wanted to have a bigger color palette to choose from. So I just went ahead and got the larger set, and then I got this case for them. And the case is not really ideal because these are in there pretty snug, and it's a little bit of a pain to get them out, but otherwise they, it's easy to find stuff when I want a specific color. Super easy. So yeah, Arteza twine markers. And then next, in kind of a random order, I have everything piled up behind me, and I'm just grabbing stuff kind of as I go. So this case contains, I'm not sure how many, I think it's 72, I believe, or 76. These are the Staedtler, I don't even know what these are, the 320s. I never even paid attention to that before. So they have a nib like this on one end, and then a fine tip on the other end. And then they didn't come with names or numbers, so I put a number on there with a Sharpie, and that way I can create a color chart for myself. But I like these pretty well. The ink is a little bit not super saturated, I guess. So it's, when I use them on gesso, a gessoed page, they're very pale, which is fine because then you can always darken them up with pencil. But yeah. And then next is this little roll. Excuse all the cat hair. I have a cat, so cat hair gets everywhere. But this is the set of 72, I believe, Staedtler Fineliners. And I got the kind in this roll-up case. If I had to do it again, I would probably have chosen a different format because, I mean, I like having them in order so I can find what I'm looking for, but this case gathers cat hair, and it's just, I don't know, it's not my favorite. And again, with these, I put a number on there with Sharpie so I could create a color chart. And I mean, it's really essential for me to have a color chart of them. But I really wish they would give them numbers or names. And then next up are the Arteza 102 Fineliner pens in this tray, or this tin rather. And they come in 3 different trays. you just take that out of there. But these are a little funny because the cap color doesn't necessarily match the color of the ink. So I really needed to do a color chart. So again, I went and got a Sharpie and wrote just a number on each one, you know, 1 through 102 based on where they were in the tray, and then I created a color chart. That was really essential for me to be able to see what I was using. These are not my favorite Fineliners because they're very patchy, and some of them are extremely liquidy when you go to write with them, and some of them are on the drier side, and I even had one that was dried out when it was brand new. So, I mean, I love the tin, I love the way they look, but they're probably not the highest quality ever, but that's okay. And next up is the total opposite of that in quality. This is the set of 84 Neocolor 2s, and these were not inexpensive, but they are so nice, so worth it, I think. They're for those who don't know, they're water-soluble crayons, and I use them for backgrounds quite often, and they are just a dream to work with. So many beautiful colors. They're really packaged well and just gorgeous. So there's two trays of these. I don't know why I keep that little thing, but I do. Yeah, these are fantastic. And then next up from my random stack of stuff behind me is this little container that was originally some kind of a frozen meal or something. Sorry for that loud noise. But in here I keep my duplicates of Staedtler Fineliners because I had a 12-pack first, and then I went and bought a larger pack. So of course I've got some extras, and then I have I think it's like 24 set maybe, I'm not sure exactly, but the Stabilo 88s fine point, and these are similar to the Staedtler Fineliners, or any Fineliners really, but I don't like them quite as well. I like the colors and everything, but the points are a little bit square or something, and I don't really like the way they handle. But I still use them. I just don't like them as well as some others. So there's that. And then I got, oh, and I should also say, and this is one thing I said in my first video with the pencils, is that of course I in no way need all of this stuff to color. There's just no way. You could get along just fine with one set of whatever supply it is. It's just that I love to collect things. Well, I love to collect coloring supplies and art supplies and craft supplies. So that is why I've got all of these things, and I've collected them over a number of years, so yeah, it's just what happens over years. So this set is the Ohuhu 60 dual tip water-based, and there's a fine tip, like a fine liner on one end, and then a brush nib on the other. I like these a lot too. These are very sort of bright in your face colors. but they work great, and I like this little container. Oh, and once again, because they didn't come with a number or a name, I had to put a little number in Sharpie so I could make a color chart from them. And they come with some extra nibs if you damage your brush nib, you can change them out. So I thought that was really cool. This is really pretty. And then up next is one of my higher end water-based markers sets. And this is the Tombow markers. And these you can buy, and I started buying these open stock first. And then I just really love them. So I gradually accumulated all of the colors. And then for the longest time I had them just really grouped randomly in these two bins, and it was so hard to find what I was looking for because the colors of the caps are, they don't always match what you'd think the color would be, and they have a number. So these are a brush nib on one end and not a super fine point, but a fairly fine point on the other end. And then one day I just splurged and bought this case, and it folds out like that. And now it's so much easier to use because I can find what I'm looking for that much easier. So, these are an investment. They're not the most inexpensive water-based marker, but they're very nice quality, and there's a lot of, the color range is really good. And then next up, I got this little case that I keep my Crayola Super Tips in. And it's funny because these Crayola Super Tips are very inexpensive. I don't know how much I paid for them, maybe $10 for 50. I think it was 50? Yeah, instead of 50. And again, I had to put a number with Sharpie to make a color chart. But that's fine. But these are some of my favorite pens. I don't know, they don't streak as much as other water-based markers, I feel. And you can create various widths of lines, really fine lines or wider lines. So I don't know, there's just something about them that I just love. So yeah, I use these quite a bit. And they are extremely inexpensive. So if anyone's looking to just try something out in the water-based marker area, that might be a good place to start. And then these are also water-based markers. For a long time I didn't use these much because they are very, very juicy and they bleed a lot. So I think they would probably bleed through the page, and I just didn't like the way they handled. They have a wider point than a Fineliner, and yeah, for a while they just kind of sat, but actually then I found out they work fantastically with pages that I've put gesso on, so I use them a lot for that now. They're extremely pigmented, you get a really nice rich color, and there's a pretty good selection of colors. So that is what I use them for now, is like mostly pages that I've based in gesso and that needs a base of water-based markers. And then next up is my ridiculous, absurd amount of gel pens. So first, this is, well, I have these arranged by color, and it's kind of complicated, so I won't go into it, but this is my like runoff bin of gel pens. This is like all kinds, all mixed together. So jelly rolls, what is this? These are the Ink Joys, which I don't really believe are gel pens exactly. They're okay. And then these, which are just inexpensive. These are the kind that you get when you buy, I don't know, Shuttle Art or Fiskars, or there's a bunch of different brands that have essentially the same pen. And I think they're manufactured by the same company or the same factory somewhere. Yeah, so there's this one, and then this is what I was talking about, the Shuttle Arts, and this is my sort of the continuation of that miscellaneous bin with the colors. So I've arranged them by color, and it's got this, it came with this elastic band around them. These are kind of hit or miss as far as how they work, but I really love them. In general, on the whole, I love them. And this is the rest of my absurdly huge collection of gel pens. These are all glitter, and they're A&Art, but these are great. They, I'll just show you. They have a different shape than the other ones, slightly. Same tip and everything, but they work really nicely. They go on smooth. They're just beautiful, sparkly. So yeah. And next up are my Crayola Crayons. These are just, how can you not have crayons, right? I use them, there's one book that I use them in. It's Andy Grace called Nifty. It's has larger spaces that are good for coloring in crayons. But of course you can use these in any book. And I think Lisa, is it Lisa? Laura Colors too, a few months ago had some great videos on using crayons in like nice coloring books, and they looked fantastic. So it's possible to use these for pretty much anything. It's just you have to know how they operate. Of course, they're not going to be like your colored pencils, but still they're fun, and they smell like childhood, so gotta have some of those. And then next up are my paints. So first I've got this set of Arteza 60 Colors of Acrylics. And I bought these for not just coloring books, but experimenting with acrylic painting sort of on its own. So they come in tins like this. And I'm not going to take all of these out of here, but there's a color chart right here. So these are nice paints as far as I can tell. I'm not an artist, but I like them a lot. And I used some for my coloring pages. Like I used one of these for the dark blue for the Buffy page for the background, and it worked great. So that's that one. And then this is the rest of my acrylic. Well, this is not just acrylic paints, but this is like, there's a few watercolors in here that I don't really have a place for otherwise. So these are the Winsor & Newton. Can't see it through the camera. Yeah. I just throw them in there. But the rest of these are acrylics, and these are just, you know, like one of those variety packs, those little sets that you can buy at the craft store. And I think I got it at Hobby Lobby or Joann Fabrics. And it came with one bottle of white, one bottle of black, and then, you know, these came in rows. I cut them apart. So just, you know, a variety of colors, but I didn't want to buy huge bottles of all of these different colors. I got these several years ago and I didn't really know how much I would need or anything like that, so I just got the little samples, and I still have plenty of paint in all of these, so those have been really great. And then I also have these. This is Zig Wink of Stella brush pens. And I know most of you know what these look like. I'll just take it out of the box anyway. So I have the gold, the silver, and the clear. And they're kind of like a water brush in that you have to squeeze this part to get it to come out. And then it's like, basically it is a water brush. But it has a really, really fine glitter, really pretty finish. So there's those, really love those. And then, so these are the sets of Reeves paints that I have. These were not purchased specifically for coloring books, but I have used them. I have the watercolor set, and this is 18 different colors. I'm not going to take them out of here, but these are just really inexpensive sets, but the quality has been good as far as I can tell. And again, I'm not a professional or anything close to that, so they've been fine for me. And this is the Gouache Set. This is 24 colors. And then I wouldn't use these for coloring books at all, but I bought these to experiment with oil painting, the oil sets. And yeah, I like these. And then I've got a bunch of little watercolor tins. And first up, this one is a really, really inexpensive one that I got at Joann Fabrics, I think it was. And it's kind of a no-name brand. I've seen them branded as various different things. They have a lot of filler. They're not the best quality paints, but you know, they do a decent job in coloring books. I've used them and been happy with the result. So yeah, I definitely use those sometimes. And then I have this Goar Watercolors. This was not purchased for coloring books specifically, but I do use them. And these are nice watercolors too. And I've got more of these than I actually need, to be honest. I kind of doubled up on on things. I wanted to experiment with gouache, so I bought this opaque watercolor set. And I really don't need a pan set of gouache as well as the liquid gouache. It's just not necessary, but you know, it's always fun to have different things to play with. So this is gouache. And then I have this one, which is Winsor & Newton Cotman watercolors. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get this open because I always have trouble opening it. Let me just... Here we go. So these are a little bit different. They're half pan sets, or they have these little half pan things that, these little tablets of color or whatever kind of come out of there and then they stick back in. And it comes with a palette that pops out. These are really nice. These are high quality, higher quality than some of the other sets that I have. They're not the very best you can get, but I didn't want that anyway. So yeah, I really like these too. And then lastly, for watercolors, I got this set of Opalescent, Pearlescent paints that I got at just, I don't know where it was, a drugstore, some drugstore, and I think it was about $6. And this is not the best ever, and if you look closely, I don't think you can tell, but in real life you can see that there's hardly any paint in there. It's very, very thinly poured, which kind of made me sad, but on the other hand, I've used these, not a lot, but I've used them, and they've been great. They've been fine for my needs, and so far I haven't really needed to buy one of the more expensive metallic watercolor sets, although they're lovely. I just haven't felt like I can justify it so far, but who knows, that may change. And then this is not really coloring book based, but I just have this 12-step set of drawing pencils. If I can get it open, I'll show you. It's just a basic set of graphite pencils from hard to soft. Definitely could use it with water, or with your coloring books if you wanted to, but I don't. And then is this little container of just random, well, not random, I guess, but it has various things in here. So I've got some extra Tombos in my Tombow colorless blender that I use a lot. That's really great. I've got some Posca, some white Posca pens. I've got my Signo Uniball that I love. A couple of different Pitt pens. That one and this one. One is a brush, one is a fine point gel pen. These are Micron, Sakura Micron pens. These in the front are the Crayola Twistables that honestly I don't really use very much at all. In the back here I've got some Papermate flares, and these are kind of, yeah, pretty much fine point. They're a little bit inkier than a fine liner, so I have to be careful with where I use those. And then I've just got some one of these is just a pencil, but one of these is I think this is the Prismacolor colorless blender that I use sometimes. And then I got just a couple of luminance, Caran d'Ache luminance in the white and buff titanium. And on the recommendation of, I think it was Color with Claire, but I don't use them a ton. Maybe I should try that more. Is that everything here? I think so. Yeah. It's just kind of a place where I keep things that won't go anywhere else. And then lastly, I've got just a few random, well, I don't know, sort of miscellaneous necessities. Little pencil sharpener. This is the pencil sharpener that I use, just basic handheld simple one. And then this little container that I keep my pencil shavings in. And this was a yogurt, no, it was a anyway, it was a container for some kind of spread, and I just I used acrylic paint and put some stickers on there and gussied it up a little bit with some embellishments and polymer clay stars, and yeah, I really like that. And then this is the gesso that I use for my coloring book pages. I like it. I wish that I had a clear gesso that went on super smooth, and I'm gonna try to find something like that sometime, but for the meantime this is perfectly good. And then I have Terpenoid Natural, which is it's actually a paint cleaner and a brush conditioner, but I saw someone on YouTube using this to in the place of like Gamsol instead of the odorless spirits, which are toxic. I decided to try this out because I really don't like the idea of having toxic fumes, even if it's minimal. I just don't like that idea. So I tried this. I like it. I just got this fairly recently, so I haven't used it a lot, but I want to do some more experimentation with that. And then the last thing that I have is just this little container of brushes. Got my scissors, some water brushes, tools for various things, like this crochet hook that I was using the end for dotting acrylic paint. I've got my clay shapers that I was using with some oil pastels. I've got different watercolor brushes, acrylic brushes I use for acrylic. These are synthetic brushes. This one I use with gesso. Yeah. Some of them are expensive, some of them I got at, Hobby Lobby. Just like a variety of different stuff. And then I do believe that is everything. Oh, I have a couple more little things. I just have this sandpaper for sanding down the gesso, and it's like this little kind of spongy thing that I got just for a few dollars, and that works well. And then I've got this palette for watercolors or acrylics, and I forgot to bring in what I use for my palette, and I'm gonna go out and get that, and then I'll just clip it out so you'll never see me do it. So this is what I use for my palette. Most, like 99% of the time, this is what I use, and it's just a tile, a glass tile, like it was left over from renovating the bathroom, you know. It's just a little piece of glass with rounded corners, and this is just fantastic to use for a palette for everything, for watercolor, for acrylics, because then I could just scrape it off with a razor blade, or even with oils. It works great. So this is one of my most used things. And then lastly, I wasn't going to show this because I don't think this actually works for coloring books very well, but I suppose it's possible, so I thought, oh, might as well show it. I mean, they're so pretty. So this was an inexpensive set of oil pastels, and yeah, I really like experimenting with them kind of on their own with oil paper, not in coloring books, but yeah, like them nevertheless. And I think that is it now. I think I've showed you everything that I own as far as coloring supplies, art supplies. Yeah, it's a lot. I hope you enjoyed my little show and tell. I hope everyone's well out there and enjoying your own coloring supplies, and I will see you in the next video.